Welcome into another episode of the Successful Driver Podcast here, and it's a very special day for us. Today, we're going to be talking to Laura Cyrus with Truckers Against Trafficking. Laura is the Senior Director of Industry Training and Outreach. Laura, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and have this conversation.
Oh, for sure. We'd just love right off the top, maybe just kind of give us an overview of Truckers Against Trafficking and just tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So Truckers Against Trafficking, or TAT, as we call ourselves, we're an international nonprofit organization. And really, we're seeking to engage what we call bystander intervention and targeted systems change to raise up a mobile army of transportation professionals, primarily, that can assist law enforcement in the recognition and the reporting of the crime of human trafficking in order to aid in the recovery of victims and the arrest of their perpetrators. So we provide essentially industry-specific training at no cost to the trucking, bus, and energy industries, basically just helping all of the frontline folks out there understand what human trafficking is, recognize the red flags, and then most importantly, know what to do if they ever suspect it. So we got started, obviously our name, right? Truckers Against Trafficking in the trucking industry, recognizing that drivers especially could be that extra set of eyes and ears for law enforcement. But then over the years, we've scaled, we've grown, crossed modes, crossed borders. But essentially at the end of the day, we are about empowering anybody, whether you're a truck driver or stay-at-home mom or whoever you are, business executive, to understand that human trafficking can be taking place in your community. It may be intersecting in your personal sphere of influence or your professional sphere of influence, and there's something that you can do about it to help combat it.
Yeah, and I don't think people have a full grasp or realization of how impactful the truck driving community really can be for helping fight human trafficking.
Yeah. It's crazy. So I had no previous experience with the transportation industry before I came to this organization. I've been here now for about 11 years and have met literally thousands of drivers over my time, going to the big truck shows and truck rodeos and truck driving championships and different things. And, really getting to meet folks that are out there every day doing this job and understanding just, first of all, how great the industry is. The men and the women behind the trucking industry, right, are just predominantly, family oriented, give you the shirt off their back, salt of the earth folks who would do anything to help anybody. And so just by giving them, a little bit of education and understanding around the nuances of what can be a pretty complicated crime, and just seeing them kind of really interpret and intuit, like, wow, what if this was my son or my daughter or my friend or family member, right? And just helping them understand, over the course of their career. I've spoken with drivers, been out there over the road for decades who've said, I've seen this. Now that I know what you're talking about, I know I've seen this at rest areas, truck stops, hotels, motels, different places in my life. And I didn't know what I was looking at or that I could do anything about it. And I think that's that light bulb moment, which is really exciting for us as a team, to really help people understand, this is real. It's happening in your community. It's happening while you're over the road as a driver, but even in your own neighborhood, potentially, this could be happening. And so to have that empowerment is what's, I guess, really fulfilling to help people get drawn into the work.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of light bulb moment kind of opportunities when they kind of have their themselves exposed to that a little bit. And so how do you guys go about engaging with, truck drivers across the country?
Yeah, so we are all about partnerships and network leadership, as we call it. And, we really seek to not only empower the drivers at the driver level, we work with owner operators. We have a fantastic, what we call education portal, which is basically a website where anybody can go register for any of our free courses and get certified, become a certified trucker against trafficking or bus driver, whoever you may be. We've got courses specific to all kinds of different niche pieces of the industry. But predominantly, we're working with trucking companies. We're working with CDL schools. We're working with associations and basically helping those organizations understand whether they're doing new hire orientation or regular safety training, monthly or quarterly safety training that they may have, our training videos and training materials can be easily included in those meetings or in those types of assignments that are made for drivers as they're coming on. And so just by incorporating a video, which takes less than 30 minutes to get through, and is honestly quite engaging and heart-wrenching, those trucking companies, those CDL schools, others can really be a part of that ripple effect, the greater ripple effect of, again, empowering and educating drivers to recognize the crime and to know what to do.
Okay, so we obviously we talk to a lot of we have a lot of truck drivers listening to this show, and so one of the things I'd like to know is just for anybody that might be listening, and obviously you said this extends beyond just the truck driving industry. These are all some things that can apply in a lot of different areas. But what kind of steps can a truck driver take to kind of actively contribute to helping raise the red flag when there's issues like this, or just help prevent human trafficking? What are the things that they can do?
Yeah, so I would start, if you haven't been trained, if you haven't gone through our awareness video, start there. We've got a video specific to OTR drivers. We've got one specific to local and more final mile drivers. We've got a video specific to in-home delivery and professional movers when we talk about the trucking industry. And so start there. Watch that video. You can go to our website, education.truckersagainsttrafficking.org, to go through any of those courses. But essentially, understand the red flags. And I'd love to call those out for anybody that's listening. Mm-hmm. Right. If you are seeing a minor that you believe may be engaged in commercial sex, or you are witnessing someone under the control of a pimp, regardless of the age or gender of that potential victim or that potential pimp or trafficker, those are two huge red flags. And I guess maybe let me define human trafficking. I think people have an idea, but we're talking about the exploitation of human beings through force, fraud, or coercion for the purposes of either commercial sex, think prostitution, stripping, pornography, brothels, and most typically pimps or pimping, as well as forced labor or labor trafficking. So there you could think of sweatshops, agricultural fields, domestic servitude, sometimes construction work, nail salons, illicit massage parlors, right? There's all of these different ways, both from the forced sexual exploitation and the labor trafficking side here in the US that are taking place. But ultimately, it comes down to the fact that there's that third party, the trafficker, the victimizer, somebody who is in control of someone else and making a profit off of their back. That's human trafficking. That's what we're talking about. And so if you're seeing that minor or even that adult, could be a man or a woman, could be a boy or a girl. This crime affects so many different people. There are no racial, gender, or socioeconomic bounds. But if you're at a truck stop or a rest area and you see somebody going truck to truck, knocking on cab doors, or you hear on the CB or radio of some kind, somebody asking about commercial company, or would you like a date? Or, a lot of this is being prearranged now through social media, through different apps and online venues. And so just keeping your eye out for people that look like they may be being controlled by others. If you have an opportunity to interact with a potential victim, asking that person just something as simple as, hey, are you okay? Do you need any help? Can I get you a bottle of water? Like what's going on? There's a number of different red flags. I would encourage you actually, I realize some people won't be able to see me, but we have these amazing little wallet cards, which have kind of the red flags, the questions to ask, things to look for. And actually, we have that in app form. If you wanted to search Truckers Against Trafficking on any app platform, you can download our app to keep those red flags at your fingertips, walk through some of those scenarios, be able to make a tip. But ultimately, and I'll bring it back around, we're asking you to call that in. Call it in to local law enforcement, call it into the National Human Trafficking Hotline or to a local human trafficking hotline that may exist in your area. And through our app, you're able to identify if those hotlines exist, depending on where you are in the country. But call it in and report it. Our partners in law enforcement and at these hotlines have said, we would rather people call and be wrong about the situation than not call and have that victim continue to endure, right, a life of trafficking. So the biggest thing to do, I would say, is to get trained and then keep your eyes open and have the courage to make that call.
Well, and I'm sure, in your time, you've seen a lot of truck drivers have the courage to make that call. And, we'd like to know, if you maybe give us a story or two from some recent stories about some success, being able to help save some people from some atrocities.
Yeah, absolutely. So one that absolutely comes to mind right away is our 2023 Harriet Tubman Award winner. So just sidebar, our Harriet Tubman Award is our greatest award that we give every year to somebody in the industry that has made a call, either resulting in somebody being recovered out of a trafficking situation or preventing a trafficking situation from taking place. We take nominations for that typically through the first quarter of the year, and would love if you have a story, if anybody listening today has a story of a time that they've made a call, we'd love to hear about that. We'd love to have you be nominated for that award potentially. But our most recent award winner, Joe Aguayo, he is a professional truck driver for Winco Foods out west. And late in 2022, he was on his route in a mountainous area with limited cell phone service, and it was actually an area known for its hot springs. And Joe was driving through this mountain highway and kind of came around this big curve and saw this woman standing on the side of the highway, wrapped only in a beach towel, looked like her head had been shaved, staring kind of disoriented up toward the mountains. And at the time, Joe not only didn't have cell phone service, but he's, really great employee and followed a company policy that, was explicit about no unapproved riders in his cab, right? So he's like, I need to help this woman, but I can't have the ability to make a call right now, but I know that there's a police call box about 5 to 10 minutes down the highway because he's used to this route. So he keeps driving, gets up to that roadside call box, pulls over his truck safely, phones in to, whoever picks up on the other end of the line and says, hey, there's this woman that needs help back by the hot springs. She looked like she was basically naked except for this beach towel. Can you please send someone out to help her? And they said, absolutely. We'll get somebody there as soon as we can. Joe continues on his way. He's on the clock, right? He's on his job. He's moving along, thinking about, gosh, I hope somebody helps that lady. Fast forward about 2 months, Joe was driving back through that same area and had a weather-related accident. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. Nothing, horrible happened. But as he's sitting there working through the paperwork with the state trooper, he just kind of thinks, and says out loud nonchalantly, hey, whatever happened to that woman that, was standing by the side of the road by the hot springs a couple months ago? And the trooper was like, how do you know about that? Was that you that called that in? And he's like, yeah, I was the one that made the call. And that trooper that was assisting him was the trooper that ended up being dispatched and helping that woman, picking her up off the side of the road. As it turns out, she was a 27-year-old woman who had been trafficked. She was an indigenous woman from an area about 3 hours plus away from that location. She had been drugged. She had been beaten. I have spoken to the officer myself, and he was just describing the nature of her wounds as taking his breath away. Just horrible, horrible treatment. Again, had been on drugs, had just really been through horrible, horrible things. That trooper was able to take that woman to a hospital where she was for a few days recovering. She was issued a caseworker. We don't know, at this point because of confidentiality, what ended up happening. But that trooper reported not only to Joe, but to us as well. If he hadn't have made that call, who knows? That woman likely would have died from her wounds, from exposure. Joe actually learned that same day that woman had been wandering around in the woods around those hot springs, and that other people had called in to authorities and said, hey, there's this woman that looks disoriented. She's naked. She needs help. Can somebody please, come and try to assist her? And the law enforcement had shown up and couldn't find her at the time. Anyway, so it's just, it's wild to think about, what one phone call can do to change somebody's life. And Joe goes on to say, he didn't know exactly, obviously, that it was necessarily human trafficking. But the neat thing about this story, I think, that gives me goosebumps is literally about 2 months before this had happened, Joe's company had implemented the TAT training. And he had gone through the training. He had sort of like human trafficking and stuff on his mind. And again, wasn't necessarily sure that this person was a trafficking victim when he saw her on the side of the road. But the point is he knew the importance of making that call. And so anyway, I think it's just goes to show the power of TAT in action, the power of you all drivers, right, who care and who are vigilant and observant. I mean, it's literally part of your job to read all of the signs as you're going down the highway, and just to think, be thinking about people and what can any of us do to, be kind and to be thoughtful and be good members of our community. So.
Wow, that's an incredible story, Laura. Before we get you out of here, I would just first steps that people can take. Anybody listening to this, any first steps, just as a quick reminder before we get you out of here, what first steps someone can take with Truckers Against Trafficking?
Yeah, check out our website, truckersagainsttrafficking.org. No matter who you are in the industry or outside of the industry, if you're a driver, an executive, a traveling salesperson, again, just an everyday general member of the public, we have opportunities for you to get involved. We'd love for you to get trained. Again, it's free. It takes less than 30 minutes. And if you're interested in rolling this information out at your company or your CDL school or wherever you are, send us an email, info@truckersagainsttrafficking.org. We'd love to connect with you and get you plugged in, because it takes all of us. TAT, Laura, Cyrus, any individual, anti-trafficking organization or whoever you are, we're not going to end it on our own. It's such an immense global issue. It really takes all of us, all hands on deck, to do what we can in our own spheres of influence and be willing to be part of the solution. So hopefully I've encouraged some of you today to consider it. And again, thank you for the time and opportunity to bring some awareness to this issue.
Laura, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for sharing your cause. We really do appreciate your time.
Thanks.
That's another episode of the Successful Driver podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you again to Laura Cyrus, Truckers Against Trafficking. Make sure you go check that out. We appreciate you, and we'll catch you later.